This segment of CoastLife was brought to you by Browse About Books.
We have so many avid readers out here on the coast, which you love to see. And if you need a book, Browse About Books is a great place to go. Their staff always has great recommendations. And with recommendations in mind, well, that's how we got today's guest. They recommended we bring in Harry Brake, a library media specialist. And you've got a lot to talk about, but we want to most importantly talk about this Festival of Words that's coming up. What is it? Why should people care about this?
Great question. So many people didn't know, and I didn't know at first. It's been a festival that's been going on in Delaware since 2000. Miss Dillner brought it to UD. So for a couple of years, it was just stayed at UD campus. And then it started to travel to different schools. And so basically, it's an organization, nonprofit, that gears towards secondary students and avid readers, and it brings authors to them that they maybe normally wouldn't have access to, but it gives them a chance to interact with publishers and authors, and just really, it's a whole festival of words, but not just books, it's see where the words will take you. So it's really great. Yeah.
What is the value, do you think, in getting the exposure to these young people to meet authors and publishers and people in that world that maybe they wouldn't normally come across?
I think the misconception that is dispelled when they have this festival is kind of in part to see what libraries do for students. And a lot of people remember what libraries were when they were growing up, but it's changed a lot and it's evolved. So when they get to come to the festival, they actually see, I didn't know this was a part of what libraries do. So you see librarians, but you see educators, but you see students as well. And the exciting thing is it just redefines, I think, what people think a library serves a purpose to, but also how reading impacts everything from engineering to agriculture to everything. So you get a chance to see all these different influences that you wouldn't normally think of, and kind of dispel the stereotypes that people think about reading and about what libraries serve a purpose for.
Sort of the evolution of what the library has become, if you will. Now, where does this event take place this year? Where are you guys at, and how did it come to you?
Woodbridge High School is the location. We're in Greenwood and Delaware, of course, and it's traditionally been in Newcastle, thanks to the many schools that just took turns hosting it. And so that just went from place to place over a while. Unfortunately, there's just, with COVID, it was a little hard to bounce back again. But we did, and so I've been on the committee for a while, and then this year it was in the best decision to say we need to postpone it because we're really not ready, which I agreed with. The students came to me en masse, and they're like, if we lose this even 1 year, we're afraid we're going to lose ground for advocating for what literacy is, what libraries are, and they're like, we need to do it even if it's small.
Well, can I pause right there? Because
Sure.
you said the kids came to you and said this. I think it's such an important part of this whole story, how passionate some of the students, some of the kids are about this. Can you tell us a little bit more about that part, and then we'll go back into the story?
Yep, I think that's the unseen treasure about this, is for the first time, and I wouldn't say the first time, last 3 years, students have been so passionate about how they feel when they go to the festival and what they get from it. They've stepped up and said, we want to be a part of it, but we also want to be a part of the planning. So within the last 3 years, they've not only been presenters of these workshops, they've done the cold calling to the sponsors. They've cold called literally the agents of the writers and said, we need you to come to our school. And so they've kind of set up the groundwork to let that happen. And so, which is interesting, the last couple weeks and months, I've just been trying to follow their lead to make what they want happen. And they have definitely taken the lead.
They have some opinions?
Oh, yeah. They have opinions, but it's amazing that you have the most quietest student. And what happens when they're empowered to do something what maybe normally an adult does. They're doing those same roles that adults did with planning this festival, and now you can kind of see the fruits of their labor with, it's not just become a festival for those audiences. Now the students have a really good grasp on that festival, and they're the help planning it.
When is this festival? How can somebody that wants to attend sign up for it?
If you want to attend, we're asking everybody to register because there's so many presenters this year that we want to make sure it's distributed evenly across everybody. It's April 5th. It's the first Saturday in April. It goes from, the doors open at 8, and that gives everybody a little bit of an hour before the workshop starts at 9. And they traditionally close about 2:45 p.m. and those doors will close at 3 p.m.
Well, do you have a few more minutes with us?
Sure.
I think what we'd like to do here is we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to learn more about your featured author. So we're going to talk about that. Don't go anywhere. There's more CoastLife right after this.
This segment of CoastLife was brought to you by Browse About Books.
We're turning the page, but we're still talking books here today on CoastLife. Our friends at Browse About Books, always a good place to check out if you're looking for the next thing. And they're, again, the ones that have sort of set us up with today's interview. We've got Harry Brake in here, a library media specialist. Most importantly, though, we're talking about the Festival of Words, and you guys have a great author coming in to be a part of this. Who is it, and how did you set it all up?
Jason Reynolds is our keynote speaker. They have a national book festival every year that we go to as librarians and teachers in Washington, D.C. I didn't realize when I started going to the National Book Festival that actually Jason Reynolds had been here to Delaware for Festival of Words. I believe it was 2016, so he had been here previously. And then he's become the YA ambassador for children's literature in 2020 to 2022.
Which is a great envoy to the kids that you've got, the YA ambassador, young adult. That's perfect.
It is, and every time we've gone to National Book Festival, he's been there. Literally, the students said, you should bring Jason back, to Delaware. So I said, we'll try. That's a big ask. And he's just, just like any real popular author, he's very hard to get. Kids called, the kids emailed, I called, and then they just said, well, hey, we have a Saturday open in April, and they said, just go for it, go for it. So we did, and they raised the money to kind of cover everything, and Browse About has been amazing as far as being able to help as a bookseller, knowing the behind-the-scenes arrangements and guiding us on that.
Kind of navigating that world a little bit.
With contracts and books, and obviously they're experts because they have all these different authors that always come into Browse About. So it was a great partnership that they were willing to help us out with this festival, and it just fell into place based on his schedule and their wisdom and their guidance, and yeah. So
for the people that show up to this event, and he's going to be there, what is sort of the interaction that you're expecting, or how do you think that goes?
So he's going to arrive at 10 o'clock that day. This gives everybody a little bit of time to get settled in. His keynote will start at 10. There'll be about 45 minutes where he'll just be able to present, and they're asking us for questions to be given to him ahead of time. So he'll come prepared to answer their questions directly. And then kind of a free-for-all for about 15, 20 minutes of questions that maybe weren't necessarily expected, but based on his talk. And then he will also stay another hour to sign books for everybody so that they get to interact and just say hi and say something as they're getting his book signed. So.
Well, that's all very exciting. I don't want to just talk about the event solely. We've got somebody in you here that's in the library system, and I want to give you an opportunity to talk to everybody at home about just how important libraries are and why they make a difference in our communities and in society in general.
I would say the biggest thing is what people don't know, and that's what's been really important, is finally being able to put students in that role that adults have taken over. So we just came back from Legislative Hall last week. Students went in mass and they were talking about, look, we really need to get the message out about what libraries do. They're not just where we go in, we get a book and we leave. And they're talking about needing spaces to just decompress during the day. And then connections like this, different libraries across the state. We belong to a Delaware consortium. And thanks to that group, we can exchange books up and down the state without ever having to go to a public library or to another school. We can just exchange it between schools. It makes it really convenient for students. But then the students get to say, look, I got on the phone and I was able to talk to a legislator and I made this festival happen. I had these sponsors be able to willing to support us. And so they're doing all these interactive things and have tools that maybe they wouldn't be able to afford. 3D printer, screen, 3D screening, commercial making. There's a lot of stuff that happens like that every day. They're doing podcasts out of libraries, and those are the things that people don't realize. If you don't have a library, they're kind of like
you don't have that access.
No, not at all. Not
at
all.
It sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me, based on all the things you've discussed today, you're pretty impressed with the upcoming generation. It seems like these kids are active and they're taking advantage of this stuff. What do you see on a day in, day out?
Every day and this is only because they have a feeling they have a place to go that they can get this type of involvement. If they feel like they know they can go somewhere like a school library and they can ask somebody like, I want to be more involved. And there's a lot of students in my school that are just not like that. They're not self-driven, but then they see 2 or 3 other people. They're like, I want to go to Legislative Hall, or I want to be on the phone with somebody that's an author, or I'm really into some graphic novels and I'd love to meet a graphic illustrator. And if they just see that they have that opportunity, people, whether you're self-motivated or not, they will come forward and want to be part of that.
I always, whenever we have somebody from the book world in, I always want to end on this question. Is there anything that you've seen, whether it's something you've read or whether it's something that you're seeing the kids in your school really taking to? Is there any standout book you've noticed lately?
As a librarian, there's one called the Library Book. It's really amazing if you've never seen it. It's like the history of libraries, but how it's impacted on a public library level and a school library level. If I were to ask students, what their favorite read is, they are really getting into like some free verse poetry.
Okay.
And they really do like it lately just because they feel like there's some things in there that like people get how I feel, and it doesn't have to be very formal. And it's interesting to see that they're kind of attaching themselves to something that expresses how they feel that maybe they don't see somewhere else.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate what you guys are doing. One more time, let's tell the camera when this event is.
Yep, April 5th, and that's the first Saturday in April. It's going to be at Woodbridge High School.
Well, if you are an avid reader, if you just are book curious, you should go to this event. It's a great opportunity. We're going to have more Coast Life coming up after the break.